What's up, everybody? Happy Monday. It is September 11th, which is a wild day. Everybody will remember where they were on September 11th, at least in America. I know we've got a lot of people all around the world, which you probably remember as well. So we always want to remember and pray for the families of the people affected. And just it's a day that is surreal to have been alive for. Obviously, I hear other people talk about World War II starting, and even my grandparents World War I, things like that. So it is wild to remember a day like that always. And I'm happy we could be here. I see it is Sandy's 80th birthday, which is awesome. Happy occasion. Happy birthday to you, Sandy. But we are here to discuss a very wild story/case. And we're discussing it on YouTube, and it has a lot to do with YouTube. Ruby Franke, I believe is how you say it, not Frank, not Frankel, which I keep wanting to say for some reason, is a YouTuber who had a channel called 8 Passengers that was about her husband, herself, and her 6 kids. And she has been charged with 6 felonies. She has a co-defendant. That co-defendant is not her husband at this point. And in today's video, we're going to take some time and go through a bunch of different stuff. Yes, this light is off. Let's turn this light on. That better? So this video, we are going to go through a bunch of different things that are going to help us get a full picture of the case. First, we're going to go through, just read an article that gives some background on the channel, so everybody that doesn't know who she is, and talk through the charges. We're going to listen to the 911 call from a neighbor, because the way this happened is her 12-year-old son, quote unquote, allegedly escaped her co-defendant's house where the kids were and went to a neighbor's house. And there's a 911 call from the neighbor explaining what he saw. Then we're going to read through the actual probable cause affidavit for Ruby Franke and Jody Hildebrandt. So we're going to see what's actually in the probable cause affidavit. And then we're going to watch some of and listen to some discuss the first appearance. I couldn't find the entirety of the recording. There were some Zoom issues there. And there were, a bunch of issues with people coming on Zoom, making noises, making inappropriate comments. But we do have some clips to see her, and we've gotten some information from her first appearance. We will talk about when the next hearing is. We will also talk about how YouTube and podcasts could potentially be used as evidence against her. We will also talk about her defenses. There are a couple very interesting defenses that she may use. Yes, Jonathan said, please talk about the custody hearing. I have a theory. She said that the kids essay themselves, so they will be frosted separately from each other. I think fostered is what Jonathan meant here. So yes, and this could also go to one of her potential defenses, is what was said at that custody hearing. So we're going to go through all of that. We're going to go through who her co-defendant is and the irony that is her co-defendant, and even herself. And then what is to come. So a lot to cover today. We will try to do it within 1 hour like we always do. Hit that like button if you haven't already. And subscribe to our page if you're new here because you're interested in this 8 Passengers case. Let me know in the comments. I love to hear when new people come over on new cases, when they start, and if they stick around after, which is always interesting. So another incredibly sad and depressing case that we're going to talk about together, but hopefully we can learn from it. Hopefully we can understand what happened. Hopefully we can see if allegations are legitimate, and if they are, how the judicial system works in getting justice for the victims in this case, or if somebody's wrongfully accused, how the justice system works in that way. All right, so let's get into it first by just looking at an article. We don't do a ton of this, but whenever it's a brand new case, I do want to give people some context so that they can understand what and who we're talking about, especially when somebody is so public on social media, which is going to be a big part of this case, whether we like it or not. All right. A woman who sprang to fame giving controversial parenting advice has been charged with 6 counts of child abuse. What happened to Ruby Franke and her family? On a late August morning in Utah, a 12-year-old boy covered in open wounds knocked on the door of a neighbor's house asking for food and water. He had escaped a nearby home moments before by climbing out the window and running away with duct tape still on his ankles, police say. The boy was taken to the hospital due to malnourishment and deep lacerations from being tied up with rope, according to the arrest affidavit. 5 of the children found in the same house were also taken into care, and Ruby Franke, a parenting influencer and mother of 6, was arrested. This week, she was charged with 6 counts of felony child abuse. How did it come to this? A woman who imparted parenting advice on 2 million subscriber YouTube channel. Breakthrough and backlash. For some, the arrest was no surprise, given the hundreds of videos over a number of years that had sparked criticisms of her strict parenting style. Ms. Frank was behind the 8-passenger YouTube channel, which launched in 2015 during a boom in popularity for an array of family vlogging channels, a genre in their own right that were making money on the platform. Sometimes. That's just my side note. A year later, her videos had gained tens of thousands of views. She told local news that the time filming herself with her family helped her live in the present and just enjoy the kids. The videos she edited were a window into her life, showing a typical Mormon suburban family, homeschooling, cooking, eating, and chatting away together. So this brings us to kind of our first mention of religion and Mormonism. We've seen it in some other cases. And we will talk about how this potentially might be a defense. But I want to make sure, as we talk through this, all Mormons are not the same. All homeschooling families are not the same. All momfluencers are not the same. So just because someone may have a view or angle or act a certain way does not mean we should apply that to everybody that may share a belief that has a similar title. Okay. Just want to make sure that's important. In one video, she could be seen telling her sons they would lose the privilege to eat dinner if they continued play fighting. In another, she said that her 6-year-old needed to go hungry after forgetting to take her lunch to school. So the reason I wanted to read this article specifically is people parent differently, right? I know spanking was obviously a lot bigger of a thing when I was a kid than it is now. I remember when Adrian Peterson got in trouble for using a switch on his son and saying that's how he grew up. And he didn't think he thought that was, the loving thing to do to try to correct your children's behavior. So people will parent differently, but there are absolutely lines that cannot be crossed. And the system and lawyers and law enforcement are supposed to help protect people that can't protect themselves. So when we talk about her saying her kids continue to disobey so they can't have dinner, or her daughter lost the privilege of lunch because she forgot something, I think that is more of a gray area as to whether or not that's child abuse versus tying your kids up with rope and duct tape, right? Just to give us some example. I'm not saying a jury would not find that being child abuse. They absolutely could. And you shouldn't do things to your kids that a jury could find as being child abuse. But there are lines here, and we have to remember those lines because people are going to come out of the woodwork now and they're going to try to apply everything to abuse. And some things probably are, and some things probably aren't, especially legally speaking. Hopefully nobody gives her any food and nobody steps in and gives her a lunch because she's not going to learn. Okay. Because she forgot to take her lunch to school. And that's how Ruby responded. Like, well, if you're going to forget to take your lunch, I want you to be responsible and learn to take your lunch. So you're not allowed to eat lunch at school today. Okay. Some people will scream child abuse. Other people probably wouldn't. But again, the reason I'm differentiating is these comments that people are starting to pile on are very, very different than the accusations levied against her now. They had been trying to teach their children to live responsibly as masters of themselves, her husband, Kevin Franke, said later of the incident. Despite the criticism, the Franke's authoritarian parenting approach continued, and the audience kept building. Experts believe her success reflects a modern anxiety among parents that can lead them to seek out radical and harmful solutions. For parents who feel lost and desperate, particularly when it's dealing with the problematic behavior, extreme techniques become appealing, particularly if they see results. The success of the family vlogging channels like Miss Franke's can play on people's fears about their own parenting skills, child development specialist Dr. Siggy Cohen explained. Parents are scared to make decisions and look for someone that seem to them to be fully in charge and in control. Another one, teenage son brought her parenting style to the attention of mainstream audiences. Family vlogging sphere in 2020, he revealed his bedroom had been taken away for 7 months and he was instead sleeping on a beanbag after playing pranks on his sibling. She showed he was unable to manage his own bedroom. Okay. I mean, again, is this great? Is this parenting advice people should be giving? Probably not. Sleeping on a beanbag as child abuse. Again, I'm not so sure I would say that. Some people may, but here's the point. Okay. The reason I'm trying to bring a let's see it from both sides with these types of parenting decisions that we may disagree with is to juxtaposition them from what we're going to hear in this 911 call. Because that's the next thing we're going to listen to is a 911 call. They did end the channel and she joined up with Hildebrandt, and they're again giving life advice as life coaches, parenting coaches, relationship coaches. Isn't that ironic? More on that later. So first, let's now get to the 911 call and we will listen to this together. And it's tough. It is not, there's nothing too gory, but it does give details about what the neighbor sees and hears when the 12-year-old son climbs out of a window and comes to his house.
911, the address of your emergency. Okay, and the phone number you're calling from. Tell me exactly what's happened.
I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door asking for help. And he's said he just came from a neighbor's house, and we know there's been problems at this neighbor's house. He's a Mason.
We know there's been problems at this neighbor's house, and we have heard now that there have been a lot of complaints and problems that people have brought about the Frankies in the past. And they said that there were allegations of child abuse. They said there were these problems and nothing really ever happened, even though the cops had come to their house multiple times before now. Yeah, if you don't want to hear this part, skip it. It's going to be about 10 minutes, and then we'll be back with, well, the probable cause affidavit is not fun to read either. So we're going to try to get all the information. We're going to try to get it as unfiltered as possible, not just based off of a report. That's why we don't just read a news article. We're going to listen to 911 tape, read the probable cause affidavit, try to see parts of that first appearance and kind of dig in some more.
He's got tape around his legs. He's hungry and he's thirsty.
Okay. Is your door locked?
No, I'm sitting outside with him on the front patio.
Okay, cool.
And he asked us to call the police.
What's his name?
And to be clear, yes, this is Jody Hildebrandt, Ruby Franke's partner's house, but more details on the fact that Ruby Franke knew this was happening later. But at this point, this is a neighbor of Hildebrandt who is the co-defendant. There are two defendants. The husband is not a co-defendant. We'll talk about that more later. And this is a neighbor of hers. And he had the 12-year-old son of Ruby Franke climbed out of the window of the house with duct tape on his hands and legs and was hungry and thirsty. That's how he presented to this neighbor who decided to call 911.
Be afraid. What's your last name?
There are some things bleeped out with names and phone numbers and addresses, especially of a minor. Private information will be clicked out of a 911 call.
Okay. And can you ask him his date of birth?
Again, date of birth. That's why it goes silent.
Okay. And are the neighbors out of their home, or is anybody looking for them that you can see?
No. Our homes are far enough away. I'm not sure. How did you get out of the house?
Porch.
He says you just left through the porch at the neighbor's house. Her name is Jody Hildebrandt, and she lives 2 doors up the street. Yeah, out here in Cayenne, the houses are far apart, so he walked just under the block to get to our house. He rang my doorbell and asked me to call the police.
Does he seem to be under the influence of drugs or alcohol?
I don't think so, but he's very thirsty and
Need an ambulance?
I don't think he needs an ambulance. I'll let the cops decide that, but his ankles are
interesting, right? Because, and again, we're going to try to see this from both sides, as abhorrent as it seems from one side, and that's where I am, trust me. But later, I've heard reports and seen some reports, and we're going to read the probable cause affidavit together, of deep wounds and open sores and malnourished to a severe effect. So again, horrible, but interesting that at this point he wasn't like immediate ambulance, right? However, this 911 caller, okay, I've listened to this a couple times, like spot on exactly what you should do in a situation like this. Call, let law enforcement make the decision, do what you can for the kid, and try to not scare him, right? Stay outside on the patio. His wife, it sounds like, walks up and is talking to them as well. I mean, just and he also tries to explain it. He like tries to use proper words in front of the kid to not say this kid's been abused and trapped and whatever. He uses words like detained and things that maybe the kid wouldn't know. So again, I just hats off to this guy. Hats off.
Taped up, and he won't tell us why.
Okay.
But he has duct tape around each ankle. Yeah, there's sores around him. I think the good chance he's been. Oh, and he has been around his ankles. I mean, his wrists as well. Okay, this boy has been.
Literally getting broken up, which you can understand. He's crying, but again, I think he's trying. This is me speculating at this point. I think he's trying not to cry so much in front of the 12-year-old and trying to use words he doesn't understand, maybe, or less words that could be traumatic to him in this situation, while also giving the information the 911 dispatcher needs.
This kid has obviously been. I think he's been detained. He's obviously covered in wounds.
Okay. Let's get the paramedics headed over that way, okay?
Oh, that's a good idea too.
Let's see. Has he told you where his mom or dad are?
I haven't asked him that. Yeah. You know your mommy and... Yeah, I'm sure that doesn't matter, son. Do you know where your mom and dad are?
Well, actually, I don't know where my mom is, but I do know where my dad is. He's not anywhere here. Really, nowhere.
Okay. No, he doesn't see them. He says he knows where his mom is, but
He doesn't know where his dad is.
that's correct.
I do know where my dad is.
Is his mom home?
He doesn't live
He just says he doesn't live around here.
Is his
Yeah,
mom
we're
in the
good.
area?
Is your mom around here? Have you seen her lately? He doesn't know where she is right now.
Does he know his mom's name?
What's your mom's name? Ruby Franke? Ruby Franke is his mom's name.
Okay. How do you spell the last name?
Franke.
Franke.
Okay. And does she live in the area?
No, I'm not sure where she lives. He's trying to help us, but he's...
That's okay. We don't want to stress him out too much. The officers will go over all these questions with him anyway. I just want to stay on the phone with you until we get some help there, okay?
Yeah.
What's your name?
My name is...
Again, private information, it cuts out.
Can you ask him if any other children were in the home he came from?
Okay. Was there any other kids up at Jody's house? Anybody else? No. How old? Yeah, this is the 30th of the 29th of August.
It'll be the 30th of August.
10 and 14, and they're still at this house.
Are they tied up as well?
What's the deal with? Are they being held? Do they have wounds on them as well?
Again, he's trying to me, use language that's not triggering to the 12-year-old, but we do find out that there were other kids at the house. They were also malnourished. I think at least one other one, and taken to the hospital as well with similar injuries and issues that this 12-year-old had.
Nothing bad going on with us.
Okay. Okay. So they're able to walk around the house and everything. Well, okay. He says everything's fine with them. Grain of salt.
Okay.
He says what's happened to him is his fault.
He says what's happened to him is his fault. And I think this guy's telling 911 to make sure the kid hears him say, oh yeah, he's saying it's his fault so that like he's not going to get in trouble for this is probably what he's worrying about. As the fact that all of us know this is in fact not his fault. But it does play into some of the things that we're going to talk about later as far as some of the defenses that Ruby Franke might try.
That's sad to hear. They're coming to you as quick as they can, okay?
Okay, yeah.
Really
Yeah,
well. I just want to make sure.
He's fine. I've got him sitting here. My wife, he got him water and something to give him something to eat because he's hungry, and just a young man. He's hearing his stocking feet, so he escaped.
He's calling Bob that he was able to make it to
They're on their way.
He could be safe. They should just be pulling up now. Let me know when they're with you, okay?
Will do. I hear a car, but they're not coming on the driveway. You did good. Enjoy that banana, okay?
Said you did good. Enjoy that banana.
Yeah, he
You
just
did the right thing.
30 seconds ago, so he might be waiting for his partner. I'm not sure.
Is Jody up there right now? Yeah. Okay. Jody Hildebrand is up there right now.
Okay.
So she may come looking for him here soon, but she's not going to, obviously. I think we need the cops here as soon as possible.
I'm just asking where he is now.
Yeah, she's a bad lady. We didn't realize how bad.
Neighbors even say she's a bad lady. Didn't realize how bad. But I mean, all this stuff is pretty damning. Now, this part would not come into trial, but tells law enforcement a lot.
Okay, let's see. I'm just asking where he is. Well, sounds like he's making a phone call real quick to his sergeant. He is going to head up.
Okay. All right. Well, if we have to take him inside the house, we will. We're just sitting outside right now because we have chairs out here and it was convenient.
That's okay. If anything, he's sitting out down your driveway and keeping an eye on the house. So if that's where you feel safe, that's where the child feels safe. And let's just stay where you're at.
Yeah.
You're
I
on
think
the
we're doing this. Yes.
Does he have anything with him?
But, no, he's wearing a long sleeve shirt and shorts, and it's way too big for him.
Can you tell me what color the shirt and shirt?
Okay, the ambulance is here,
Okay.
so
Are they with you?
no, they're just not getting out of the truck.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and I'll let you go then. You did a great job.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. So that is the 911 dispatch. And I'm going to answer some questions here. Kimmers, has the husband been charged? Not yet. And his attorney has said he did not know this was happening, did not know that this was going on, and just had nothing to do with it. Now, they are estranged from reports. And I will say, we have had cases like this literally in our office very recently where one parent did something that the other parent did not know about, even living together. Now, that was an isolated individual event. So if you were to think of something that's long-standing and is a pattern and habit of abuse, then it's hard to think the spouse living there and co-parenting the children would not know about it. But again, more details still to come on is if this was a one-time thing. Is this something that she did at Jody Hildebrand's house and not her house, so the husband wouldn't know? There are some factors that we don't know yet, but he has not been charged from everything I've seen. Marty, what is the difference between child abuse and felony child abuse? Usually the actions, what you did. Which brings us to kind of this question from Lee. Peter, depriving someone of food and also making them sleep on a beanbag for 6 months outside their bedroom is clear child abuse. That would clearly have a mental effect on the child. I'll just say, okay, I'm thinking about this as a lawyer, legally speaking, and how you prove cases. If your kid forgets their school lunch and you don't replace it as a lesson to help them remember their school lunch, categorically, that would be very difficult to prove as child abuse. Very difficult, especially when you fed them breakfast and you gave them snacks and you feed them dinner when they get home, or you have a snack in the car when you pick them up from school, as a lot of parents do. That is very different than categorizing it as depriving someone of food. So I just want to be careful about how we use certain terms. Starving children is very different than not bringing them something they forgot at their house to try to teach them to remember it. Making someone sleep on a beanbag, again, I think you could be more abusive in how you speak and the actions and the things you say to your kids rather than sleep on a beanbag. You can't sleep on your bed, because I can't really think of a real reason why you would ever do that. So maybe it is just, manipulation and abuse. But again, those things, I can see arguments on both sides. Taping wrists, tying feet, just detaining children in someone else's house. Good luck coming up with an argument that makes that not abuse. And that's kind of why the dialogue. Mental abuse doesn't heal, Bodhi said. That's correct. And the charges that they're charged with include physical abuse, mental abuse, doing things that would cause mental distress, torture, detaining. It's a pretty broad statute in Utah that they've charged him with. Nancy, do you think the state will request all the videos from YouTube that have been removed for more evidence? So this brings us to another kind of part in my outline here is YouTube and podcasts. This will absolutely be part of the case. YouTube, as long as they have access to them, I think would turn them over with subpoenas as part of the investigation to use against these defendants. They have put things out there publicly. They have waived any right to privacy on these public YouTube videos and podcasts and websites. And somebody else said, Jennifer said, not life coach, but parenting coach. I looked up Jody Hildebrandt's website. It absolutely says life coach, as well as giving, parenting and relationship advice. All of that public information, from my perspective, will absolutely be used against them. If I was prosecuting this case, they would absolutely be exhibits, because like I always say, and you guys are probably repeating to yourself right now, the defendant's own words being used against them, there's pretty much nothing worse or better if you're the prosecutor. Rebecca, Peter, thank you so much for always being respectful on all sides. That's why you're the best. Glad I caught alive. Thank you, Rebecca. And I mean, this one is brutal. There's no way to cut it to where this one's not going to be a brutal outcome, because even if there's some misunderstanding or good explanation or whatever, there's no way this has not negatively affected the kids. Tom, Peter, brutal topic. Thank you for compassionate and insightful coverage. The 911 gent deserves a medal. I'm bouncing. Thank you for joining us, Tom, as always. I agree. A+ to that guy. Literally. A+ to that guy. And D asks, could that person be called as a witness? Yes. Yes. Jessica, Peter, can they use mental illness insanity defense to avoid jail time? We'll dig into this topic more in another video. If you guys hit that like button, let me know you're interested in this, because that's how it's a new case, right? A lot of people reach out to me on social media about it. But it's pretty new. And if, again, you guys are not interested, we'll move on to the next one, because you guys really drive the content, especially such a sad and brutal topic. So you guys are what's going to drive this. So let me know in the comment section, and let me know by liking the video if you want to continue forward with this case. Tracy, she's still in jail, right? So yes, she is now. And I'm going to talk more about why she's still in jail, whether or not I agree with the fact that she's being held without bond, and when that may change. We're going to talk about that more a little further into the video. And I see your other question, Tracy. I'm going to hold it because it applies perfectly to something else we're going to talk about. Why would the 911's call not be evidence of trial? Okay, it absolutely will be, but they do not play the entirety of the 911 case. And if I was representing Ruby Franke or Jody Hildebrandt, I would definitely clip out the part where he said she's a bad lady. That's his opinion. It's character evidence. It's propensity evidence. It's not evidence of any of the facts of what happened in this case. So parts of it can be cut out. But the 911 call is coming in for sure. His present sense impression about what the facts are and what's going on, for sure. All right. So let's get to now. That was the 911 call. That's somebody's perspective, not a professional, although he did an amazing job. Let's pull up the probable cause affidavits now. And this comes from the Instagram page without a crystal ball. And you can see her comment there on the right, or his. All right, here we go. This is the probable cause affidavit for Jody Hildebrandt. If you can't read it, don't worry. I'm going to read it out loud. 1, child abuse. 12-year-old male climbed out of the window of an Ivan's residence belonging to Jody Hildebrandt and ran to a neighbor's home. RF, which I think is the son, Franke, knocked on the door requesting food and water. The neighbor observed duct tape on RF's ankles and wrists and contacted law enforcement. Upon arrival, law enforcement observed the wounds and malnourishment of RF to be severe. See, severe wounds and malnourishment. And he was transported to the St. George Regional Hospital. RF was placed on a medical hold due to his deep lacerations from being tied up with rope and from his malnourishment. Jody Hildebrandt was found to be in direct care of RF as he was staying at her home. In Jody Hildebrandt's bathroom, I located gauze, which had been used. This observation adds to Ms. Hildebrandt's knowledge of the abuse in the home. Ms. Hildebrandt requested a lawyer and did not speak with us. Once given her charges, Ms. Hildebrandt informed EF and RF, so those are 2 Franke children, I believe, should never be allowed around any other kids. With this information and the belief that Ms. Hildebrandt had knowledge of malnourishment, abuse, and neglect, this charge will be enhanced to a second-degree felony. I asked that Ms. Hildebrandt not be allowed bail due to the severity of the injuries and the fact that DCFS has taken 4 of Ms. Franke's children into their custody, and I have yet to speak with 2 of them. So, a couple things to unpack here. Number 1, the reason Hildebrandt is a co-defendant is because they were at her house with her. She knew about this. Another reason for the enhancement to a second-degree felony is this was not child neglect or that type of abuse. Now, about this comment, RF and EF should never be allowed around any other kids. There was a child custody hearing where reportedly Ruby Franke testified that one of her children was abusing other siblings and children in the neighborhood. And it's wild for those types of allegations. However, if you think of some other high-profile families that have a lot of kids, it would not be the first time they tried to cover it up or fix it with some kind of extreme discipline on their own. And to me, this could be one of the defenses they try to use and fail. In my opinion, this would be a failing case. But if they try to argue our kids were so bad that we were trying to do the right thing without rat them out, throw them in jail as our only other option, we decided to take matters into our own hands and try to correct the problem. And that's why we put them in this situation. And this Hildebrandt is an expert and she was helping us and we sent them to her house as like some kind of camp to straighten them out. I could see that as a defense. I don't see it working because there is not going to be anything that allows them to physically abuse a child, even if you think it's what's best for them. Number 2, child abuse. 10-year-old female was found at Jody Hildebrandt's residence after RF made contact with the police. EF was found to be malnourished and initially refused medical. By the way, also why RF may have said this is my fault because they would make him think it was his fault. And maybe he did deserve serious punishment, even criminal liability, if he did do what some are alleging that he or somebody else in the Franke child sphere did to other kids. But again, all of this is just adding up facts and questions we're going to have throughout the process. EF was found to be malnourished and initially refused medical. After approximately 4 hours, EF agreed to medical treatment. Paramedics arrived and transported EF to the hospital where she was determined to be malnourished by medical professionals. Jody Hildebrandt was found in the direct care of E. Franke, they put her name there. Once given her charges, Ms. Hildebrandt informed me EF and RF should never be allowed around other kids. With this information and belief, we had knowledge and neglect. I asked Ms. Hildebrandt not be allowed bail. Okay, let's get rid of it because I didn't realize her name was up on the screen. Whoops. Okay. And by the way, I didn't notice the same severe wounds and duct tape and rope on the daughter that they mentioned on the son, just as a side. Okay, so this is Ruby Franke's probable cause affidavit. Same thing. 12-year-old man climbed out of the window of Ivan's residence belonging to Jody Hildebrand and ran to the neighbor's house. RF knocked on the door requesting food and water. The neighbor observed duct tape in RF's ankles and wrists and contacted law enforcement. Upon arrival, law enforcement observed the wounds and malnourishment of RF to be severe, and he was transported to the St. George Regional Hospital. RF was placed on a medical hold due to his deep lacerations and being tied up with a rope and from his malnourishment. Here we go. Ruby Franke was seen on a YouTube video. So will YouTube be used? Will podcasts be used? Will their websites be used? They used YouTube to see that Ruby Franke filmed a video in Jody Hildebrandt's downstairs, in her downstairs, whatever that means, in her house, which was posted 2 days ago. And you can tell with some of these lacerations and malnourishment, it's been going on longer than 2 days. So they connect that to that. Ruby Franke must have known what was going on. This observation adds to Miss Franke, the mother of RF, being present in the home and having knowledge of the abuse, malnourishment, and neglect. Miss Franke requested a lawyer and did not speak with us. With this information and belief that Miss Franke had knowledge of malnourishment, abuse, and neglect, this charge will be enhanced to a second-degree felony. I asked Miss Franke not to be allowed bail due to the severity of the injuries of her 2 kids located at the home and the fact that DCFS has taken 4 of Miss Franke's children into their custody, and I've yet to speak with 2 of them. Again, same thing with EF. And just the same thing with they thought she had knowledge, but I don't want to leave it on the screen because, again, it has the minor's name on it. So that's the actual probable cause affidavit documentation that they have. Next, let's take a look at some of the bail discussion here. So this was their first appearance. They were being held without bail based on that probable cause. One of the interesting parts about this is the bail system. As most of you know, because we talked about different bail factors, danger to the community, flight risk, ties to the community, whether or not you're going to do anything when you get out to hurt yourself or others. To me, a lot of these factors weigh actually in favor of them getting bail. I know people are not going to like that. But the good thing about bail or bonds is that you can have a lot of restrictions if you're out on bail, whether it's house arrest, whether it's protective orders, obviously, for her children and any other children, whether it's a restriction that they cannot work as counselors or advisors or helping people with being parents or relationship advice or whatever it may be that they do as a profession. You can restrict all of that. But the way the bail system is set up, I do not believe personally, if I was the judge, that these allegations lead to being held without bail. Yet, at this first appearance, that's exactly what happened. They are going to be continued to be held without bail until their detention hearing, which is now set for September 21st. So almost a month they're going to be held in jail. Now, Franke's lawyers have said that she has some medical emergency and they want to move up that hearing. So we'll see if they do move it up. But I believe, and I'm sure a lot of you are going to disagree with me in the chat, I believe they should get bail based on these based on these allegations, as horrible as they are. And if they're convicted of them, they should go to jail for a very, 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 very long time. But that's just from me looking at applying the law, which again is not always say what people think. And I welcome all the discussion on the chat, even if you disagree. All right, so let's listen to some of this. It's not perfect. It's news reports, but there are some clips from the hearing. So we'll kind of talk through this together now.
Same idea. So many logged on to the online hearing. It clogged up the system.
I think I have it on sped up. Let's slow it back down.
Because of the interest in these hearings today from the public and members of the media, we've had some technical difficulties.
Nearly 40 minutes after the scheduled start time.
Ms. Franke, can you hear me?
Yes.
Franke and Hildebrand made their separate appearances to face their charges for the first time. Both women are being held without bail, and a hearing was scheduled to address that matter.
She's aware of the charges. She's aware of the elements. She's aware of the potential penalties.
When I was a kid, I just thought they were like the coolest family, and I'd watch them like all day, every day, whenever I had free time.
Given the influencer's popularity in particular, Observers say the ordeal has left them stunned as the world watches.
With how popular they were and how much it's been blowing up over social media, I can understand why. But it's just crazy that it's gotten this big.
Well, that hearing about the bail issue was set for September 21st, but it sounds like at least one of the lawyers has a potential conflict. So we'll have to see how that shakes out over the next couple of weeks. Again, both women being held without bail here in Washington County.
Okay. And then we have another short clip here we are going to watch because basically it was so crazy with everybody trying to log in and people were acting a fool on that Zoom call that they didn't, I don't think, stream it the way that they were planning on. So this is what we're getting. But again, at first appearance, they didn't plead from what I hear, but they understand the charges against them. They have lawyers. And so it's where we are. So we'll watch this short clip here.
Even before her arrest, Ruby Franke's social media videos providing strict parenting advice garnered a large following, but also raised eyebrows.
Up until now, I was really hoping that keeping them home from school and wiping the floorboards would really bring pain.
Some followers first expressed.
And again, this also is going to give some clips of some of the stuff she said they're going to be able to use against her. And this is just people reporting very quickly. This is not law enforcement taking their time to really dig in on somebody they're prosecuting. So it's only going to get worse in what they find, in my opinion.
Concerns 3 years ago with an online petition calling for an investigation into Franke.
I told the kids, I said, I'm not even going to let you eat breakfast until you get your chores done.
Now, the 41-year-old mother of 6 is facing criminal charges. She and Jody Hildebrandt, who owns a relationship counseling business, are accused of abusing and starving 2 of Franke's young children.
The fact that these are charges related to felonies, not misdemeanors, goes to the idea that we're talking about serious physical harm to the children.
The charges were filed after police said Franke's 12-year-old son climbed out the window of Hildebrandt's home and ran to a nearby house asking for food and water. The neighbor called 911.
I think he's been detained. He's obviously covered in wounds.
Authorities say the juvenile appeared to be emaciated and malnourished with open wounds and duct tape around the extremities. When police searched Hildebrandt's home, they say they also found Franke's 10-year-old daughter in a similar physical condition of malnourishment. On Friday, Franke and Hildebrandt appeared via video before a judge who ordered them to remain jailed without bail.
Have you received a copy of the information in this case?
Yes.
The 2 defendants said little and did not enter a plea. Carter Evans, CBS News.
I won't trust myself.
All right. So, Studi, to answer this question, what is the criteria for bail? So the important ones are the nature of the crimes against them, how serious they are. And second-degree felony is incredibly serious. First-degree felony is the only charges more serious, obviously. And then the weight of the evidence against you. Again, a lot of weight, but with Ruby Franke especially, she wasn't at the house, right? So, there's at least circumstantial evidence that she was involved or knew about it. Again, all the evidence is pointing that she absolutely did and partake in it more than just allow it. But again, just looking at it from the bail perspective is the evidence against you, the nature of the charges, the likelihood of your guilt. Okay. So that's kind of the first factor. And the second factor is, are you a flight risk? Which if she has money, then maybe she's a flight risk. Your ties to the community. It seems like she's got a lot of ties to the community. And then also, are you a danger to the community or to yourself, to others or to yourself? And this is usually the biggest one. Are you going to go out there and reoffend and hurt somebody else? That's why a lot of violent crimes, they don't let people out. But if you can restrict contact with the people that might be in danger, if you can put her on house arrest to fix the flight risk possibility, I think this case will be appropriate for certain kind of bail restrictions and an absolute bail amount that she would have to pay. I don't think it would be appropriate for no bail. Again, you guys may disagree with me, and maybe the court will as well. Just telling you how kind of I look at it. Okay, so that was the first appearance. Let me get a couple of these questions, and then I do want to get into the 2 main defenses I've heard them talk about. Lynn, as a social worker, withholding the water is a bigger deal than food. There are several reasons to miss a meal, but water is different. I agree with you, Lynn. Absolutely, I agree with you. Elizabeth, Jody has recommended by the church and has done this to other families. has been recommended. Sorry. Even her own niece, she's considered a professional therapist. So this is going to bring us into kind of the next point, which is one of the defenses. Okay. We already kind of talked about that they deserved it basically as a defense, but the other defense is a religious defense. And when we talk about religious exemptions from crimes, they do exist sometimes. And Tracy asked, this was the question I want to get back to, Tracy. First live, so excited. Thank you, Tracy. Does the church have any culpability? Thank you. So the answer to this is it depends. Okay. Number one, if the church directed her to do this to her kids, they could have some liability. If she asked the church, should we turn them into the police? And they said, no, you should deal with it at home. Gray area, but probably not criminal liability. And if the church just said, discipline your kids, spare the rod, spoil the child kind of deal, and these were the decisions she made to discipline her kids, the church probably doesn't have any liability. So there is some way that they could have culpability. There are some ways that they might not. I would say that I'd be very surprised if the church did something in writing or, so horribly to cross the line and say to discipline your kids in this way. I'd be very surprised. Not to say it couldn't happen. So let's talk about a religious exemption. Okay. Religious exemption to child abuse charges have been used in the past. Certain states have religious exemptions. Other states don't. Other states don't mention it. Some say there is no religious exemption. Some say there is. Some don't mention it. Next time my dad is on, if we keep talking about this case, again, hit the like button if you're interested in it. Almost 7,000 of you here. So if we get that like up over 5,000, then we'll do more videos on this. Other people are saying you've got to watch Jody's niece's interview. If you guys have stuff on this case, that's why I'm doing a video on it now. Enough of you DM'd me and asked me about it. Find us on Instagram at Tragos Law, Twitter, lawyer, and DM me stuff you want me to break down and look at to add context to this case. But next time I have my dad on, he has actually used a religious exemption in the criminal defense case successfully, representing Christian Scientists. And that case very specifically dealt with what the religious exemption has been historically used for, which is not physical child abuse and mental abuse. That is not what the religious exemptions are for. The religious exemptions and how they've historically been used and used successfully because of the Establishment Clause, because of, freedom of religion in our country, is medical treatment. So religiously, people have been able to use that exemption if they don't want to get certain medical treatment, or if they do want to do certain medical treatment based on their religion, and something bad happens and they're charged with a crime, that religious exemption can become part of the problem or part of the equation. And they're not absolute. It is not, you can do whatever you want in the guise of religion. You have to prove that. There's a lot of different hurdles you have to clear. But to be clear, if they plan to use that in this case, I have never seen it successfully used on a physical abuse or mental, emotional abuse case of children. Ever. So I absolutely do not think that they will use it or that it would be successful. Lovely Hope said, I heard Law and Crime say that there is such a thing as child abuse by omission. Is that a thing? Could they get the father that way? So child neglect usually is what that is known as. By omission, I don't think that's the right verbiage. If you know about it and you allow it and you partake in it and you're active in it, that's how you get to second-degree felony. Usually if you should have known about it, but you weren't involved in your kid's life enough, or you should have seen the signs and you didn't, that can be more of a negligent crime, which again would not be a second-degree felony. Alexa said, aren't there co-defendants? Can they give one bail and not the other? Yes, they can give bail and not the other. If let's say Ruby Franke sent them to camp at Jody Hildebrandt's house, the Get Right camp or whatever that you've heard of in certain scenarios, and didn't know what was happening, but did send them there. Well, she is not culpable for as violent of a crime as Jody Hildebrand if it was her actions that were tying them up and not feeding them and not giving them anything to drink. So there could be, again, I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm saying that's how you could have a differentiation in bail amount or bail at all. Marty said, I couldn't be in this jury, no chance. This would be one of the toughest ones ever. Ever. Crazy Cat Queen, since the church referred Jody H., can they be sued by other victims of Jody H.? Now, civilly speaking, yes. If they are referring people to an abuser, which again, this is all alleged at this point, hasn't been proven that she's the one that did this or whatever. I know how it looks, and I'm inclined to see evidence stacking up against her very strongly. But if it's proven and the church did refer people there without either doing their due diligence or they knew or should have known that she was doing this, then absolutely that's a case I would take. I'll tell you that right now. If you're referring people out to be abused by somebody, no church or organization or anybody should ever do that. Nirvana. I would like to see this judge make an example of them. Stop abusing or killing your children. Stop with the forced family vlogging. Let kids be kids. I mean, the laws are set up to make examples of people that are convicted of crimes like this. That are convicted, of course. Love and Butter. Peter, might they be holding them because more crimes are developing and being revealed? Possible. Or maybe they're possibly trying to figure out what to do with the kids before they let them out. Or maybe the kids are adding more allegations, like you said. And here's something that's really damning. I've heard reports that the older children are actually corroborating this abuse, saying that the mom was abusive. And that's going to be a very big problem for her going forward. Gamer, how likely is it that the dad will strike a deal to avoid charges in favor of testifying against Ruby? I think it's possible. But they're separated, I believe. So it's possible that he didn't know what was going on if he didn't have an active role anymore in his kids' lives. Crazy Cat Queen alleged. Sorry. Thank you, Crazy Cat Queen. Good correction. Bryce, guarantee the church knew about it. Look at the case in Arizona where a bishop of the church was told by high-ups not to report of a member who was admitting to sexual abusing his daughters. I will tell you right now, we have had cases against churches. The denomination probably wouldn't surprise you with this exact stuff happening. So if it does, we need to shine a light on it. The judicial system has been something historically that has done that in the past. We need to absolutely do that. And I won't say stuff like I guarantee they knew about it, but if we can prove they knew about it, it should be in civil, criminal, everywhere to shut that down. I'm with you there. Alley Cat, please do not support without a crystal ball in any way. She is sleazy and has been sued by many YouTubers for defamation. My bad. I didn't know. All I know is that's the only place I saw the probable cause affidavit. So this is not, I am not condemning or aligning with anybody else. That's why a lot of times I do this stuff myself, or I go on some people or have some people on here. Their opinions are theirs. Mine are mine. I do not affiliate with anybody else. My opinions are just mine. Except for obviously when my dad comes on and stuff like that. But even his thoughts are just his own. So thank you for letting me know that. I have no idea. Gerald, will the authorities be able to talk to the children? Yes. Care. Is there a statute of limitations for CA? Could charges conform the stream? So there usually are statute of limitations. I don't know what they are in Utah. Could the charges come from the streams? Possibly, but I don't know what the statute of limitations is in Utah. Oldest daughter called the cops, called CPS on her parents for abuse. Yeah, this is the type of stuff that's going to be incredibly difficult to get around if they ever plan on having some successful defense. Cheryl, does CPS have any culpability? My understanding is there were many calls. I got to be honest with you. I've also dealt with this, with abuse cases and dealing with CPS and how they drop the ball. I don't want to condemn all CPS agents or people that work here, but it has happened before. It is so frustrating. Ticks me off how they're literally sent in to do an evaluation. They come out showing nothing and then boom, it happens right after. It's hard to get places here, but it's possible. It's possible. Gigi plays. Are minors allowed to testify? Yes. In the most brutal of circumstances, as we've seen it with Ronnie O'Neal. If you guys remember that case early on in Florida, yes, they are. Many times they do. All right. So what happens now? well, we're going to wait for this detention hearing on September 21st or earlier to see if they're going to get out on bail. And then the case will start. We'll start discovery. They'll start gathering things. We'll start hearing reports of what's coming out. If the children are continuing to condemn them, neighbors are coming out and saying what's happening. So they're going to gather all that information. I think they're going to sift through all the YouTube videos and podcasts and websites that these people have made and gather and build evidence against them to prove what they had done. But again, is it going to be propensity evidence? Are we going to have 404B, other bad acts? Is it going to have enough similarity to come in? So just because we've seen a YouTube video of it doesn't mean it's going to be part of evidence at trial. So that's really what we're going to look forward to and see what happens in this case. Will there be more charges coming? Will there be charges for the husband? But again, if you're interested, hit that like button and send me stuff on Twitter and Instagram if you see stuff you want me to break down in this case. Don't be shy about it. Send me the articles, send me the videos. I'll take a look. And if I think I can add value to it with a legal angle, because I don't just sit here and like play something or put an article up if I can't add some value explaining the legal process, how lawyers or judges are going to think throughout the process, or law enforcement. But if I can, then it'll be something to use in future videos. So thank you everybody for joining me. I appreciate it. We did it in under an hour, which is always my goal. I hope you learned something. If you did, let me know. If you're new here again with just this case, please let me know in the comments and hit that like button. But for now, that's all I've got. I am a real lawyer for anybody that's new as well. And if you want to hear about what type of law I practice and where you can find me and look up real credentials and results and things like that, stick around for the outro. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who might be interested here on YouTube. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. You can also follow us on all social media, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, at Lawyer You Know. But on Instagram, we are still at Tragos Law. So look us up on there. And don't forget to listen to the Lawyer You Know podcast, available on all major podcast platforms. If you have a case you want to talk to us about, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, or slip and fall case, please email us lawyeryouKnow@gmail.com. Of course, all of these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, the Lawyer You